Well, good afternoon, all. It is 1 o'clock, and welcome to our council meeting this afternoon on April 17th. I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask Councillor DeBreen to read our land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you. As we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is a part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, Haudenosaunee, and Saugeen Métis. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are as it reflects our histories. May we live in peace and friendship with all of its diverse people.
Thank you. And I think I called you Councillor DeBreen. I'm not at the county anymore. I need to say Deputy Mayor DeBreen. My apologies. Is anybody registered for open forum, Madam Clerk?
None today.
Very good. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. Here to Martin, seconder. Jim, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any declaration of interest related to any item on today's agenda? Barb.
I will be declaring a conflict in a closed session matter, which I will forward on to the clerk. I believe it's the first one on the agenda, litigation 14.1, litigation or potential litigation.
Okay, thank you. I'll remind the balance of council, if one should arise during the course of the meeting, you can declare it at that time. Delegations and presentations. We have a delegation this morning from Andrew Conan. I believe is that how you pronounce that, sir? Conan?
It is indeed. It is indeed.
Very good. We're off to a good start. So welcome, sir, and the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, I don't know if there's any protocol to this. We're just okay. I'm the new resident at 85414 Gray Road 14, right on the corner. We're at that schoolhouse, Francis Schoolhouse, and I know that you've had our neighbor here as a delegation about 6 weeks ago, Don. I'm basically following up with his same points. We've noticed that since we've been there, since the repaving of County Road 11, the traffic seems to have gone up by 20-fold easy. And the concerns for us are the excessive speeds on that road. I can easily clock any of those cars or trucks going well in excess of between 100 to 120, just based on my speed as I'm going down that road. I think it's very enticing for the traffic now that it's a flat asphalt speedway. No signposts have been up since October. Granted, there's also no stop sign midway, so people build up a lot of speed. But more concerning for my wife and I, as well as with Dawn, was the speeds, is the heavy traffic, and primarily the heavy truck traffic that seems to be using it now as a bypass, as opposed to just following Gray Road 14 up and around the corner up towards Hopeville or towards Cedarville. They're using it now, it seems to me, as a bypass, and it's to the point where it's really concerning to actually even walk down the road or even to use the road. And also in my points that I sent before, in 3 months, I've reported 4 times to the Ontario Provincial Police of these trucks, usually northbound coming off of 89, that just blow through that stop sign. And I'm not talking rolling through, because we have cars that roll through there all the time. It's very tempting out in the middle of nowhere. But I'm talking, these transports are blowing through. First time I tried following one, he lost me in the dust. Reported to the OPP back in October, November. 2 weeks after that, another one full tilt through. Third one, as chance may have it, one this morning at 5 o'clock. Heard him coming, didn't get the picture, but he blew through at 5 in the morning. So that for us is a huge concern. Sharon, anything else? Engine brakes. I know I've put a request in, or I called a couple of months ago with this as well. I know engine brakes, usually there's a sign saying that there should be there, and I'm quite surprised there isn't one in Hopeville nor in Cedarhill. But the engine brakes that we find that these trucks that are using, they're not using them discriminately. They just start to apply them almost a kilometer away, and it's a flat stretch. I don't get it. I don't drive truck, but at least I know that you don't use your engine brakes in that regard. I don't want this to sound as though we're unloading. Cher? Yep.
Hi, sorry, I'm
This is my
Sherry
wife.
Conan. We're the little schoolhouse. I have a little different perspective because I am home during the day because I work shift work. The road is being used as a major thoroughfare. We're getting Chapman's trucks, we're getting tandem dump trucks, and they're all coming through. So, you know, they're gaining a lot of speed coming from 89, trying to get up the incline. And when they reach the top of the incline, they're having difficulty stopping, jake braking, gearing down. And it's also rattling our home. So we do live in a Century home, little schoolhouse. And that's also a big concern to us. Also, our driveway is right there. So it's also a danger for us coming in and out because we are very close to the road and the visibility.
Yeah, it's just, again, with us, it just seems the heavy traffic. And I once had a general manager who told me, my door is always open if you want to come in with complaints, but if you don't have a list of solutions, stay outside. And for me, it was quite simple when I requested. My wife and I looked over, and just even reducing the speed from whatever the posted limit is supposed to be, I guess it's 80, to drop it down to 60. I'd love to absolutely restrict any heavy traffic on that road. I know farm equipment, I have no problems with that. I grew up in the country, they're essential. Farm equipment is fine. I also noticed that base board and trucks come through, that's fine as well. It's just the unrestricted use of the heavy traffic. Signposts for speed limits, jake brake signs, and that's basically, and monitoring of the stop sign.
Do you mind if I interrupt one more time?
Oh, sorry, my wife.
Sorry, not to interrupt one more time. Sorry. In addition to the additional traffic, our road isn't maintained in winter. So when these trucks are using it and you're on the road and there's snow drifts or whatever, there is no room for you to move over. And that's for cars, that's for horse and buggy. There is no shoulders on that road. So yeah, it is pretty menacing to take that road in the winter when it's not maintained and you're faced with trucks coming towards you. Going towards 89.
That's it?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if that was to protocol or not.
No, it was very good. We appreciate any input on any of our roads, that's for sure. And Monica Singsoris is now our Police Services Board member. So I know she was probably taking some notes there, and she'll bring those to the attention of the board, I'm sure, in the future. And
Yep. And like I say, my number's attached, I believe, somewhere. So feel free to reach out and contact me, Monica, if that's what you need.
Yep, absolutely. All right.
Oh, actually, I just have one question. I don't know
Go
if this is proper or not. The historic Southgate signs that are posted all over the place. Love it. We used to have one in front of the house, and I have to be very careful how I phrase this. I believe ours went missing at the same time as the former tenant moved. We used to have a historic sign posted as the Francis School, and it has since disappeared.
I'm sure it's just coincidental.
I am not one to make assumptions.
No, our economic development officer is here actually, and a couple others have gone missing as well throughout the township. But I've come to understand that some of them were placed in a spot where the snowplow was having trouble pushing the snow back without bending the sign over. So a few of them were removed, and they're going to be relocated. So perhaps that is what happened.
That's perfect. I just happened to notice it was coincidental because I was there before we closed the house, the very day before they closed, and the very next day that we moved in, it was gone, and that was back in September.
All right. Well, Brenna's taking a note of that as well. So we'll look into that as well, sir.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a great day, and thank you for allowing us this time.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care now.
All right. Adoption of the minutes of our last meeting from April 3rd. Oh, do we need to receive that delegation? Yes, we do. I need a mover and seconder. Martin? Barb, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes from the April 3rd meeting, council and closed session meetings. Someone care to move receipt of those minutes? Joan and Jim, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Reports of municipal officers. Chief Building Official Bev Fisher is here with us today. He's going to talk about after hours bylaw and canine control tender award recommendations. Someone care to move that motion, please? Joan, thank you. Monica, second, thank you. Welcome, Bev.
Thank you. Welcome, Mayor. And through the mayor, I have the report in front of you. I'm sure you've all read it. I'm here to answer questions. I would like to clarify something that has been brought to my attention. On page 2, there's a statement there that says prompt within 2-day response to both telephone and email messages. I want to clarify that is getting back to the complainant, that there's either action being taken or there is no action being taken. The on-call service is to be an fairly immediate on-call service. At this time, we try to respond within 1 hour. Doesn't always get met, but we are responding. And currently, we only respond to noise and firework complaints on the bylaw end of it. And canine, of course, has responded as soon as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you, Bev. Any questions? Joan, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Bev, for clarifying that because that was something I had here to ask you. I thought in case of an emergency, 2 days response, in my opinion, is not really prompt. I thought it was inadequate. So I'm happy that you clear that up. And maybe you could also tell us what is reasonable. And I don't know if you're proposing an amendment from the 2 days or what your acknowledgement would be between telephone and email messages. Thank you.
So a 2-day response for responding to the complainant to let them know we are moving ahead or not moving ahead is, I believe, reasonable. It takes a little while to create or complete a formal investigation. And is moving ahead for responding to complaints. Each one varies. We do receive phone calls from citizens making complaints that are not viable. They're not on our bylaws anywhere, so we do not respond to those at all. Some people are not happy about that, unfortunately, but if there's not a bylaw we can proceed with, we do not proceed. We do not send an officer out to address it. And as far as the canine, we are looking at procedures, changing our procedures a little bit, which I don't want to proceed with at this time. The bylaw will be coming forward in the future. But we are looking at changing procedures so that there isn't as many as immediate responses required.
Thank you. Barb?
Thank you, Bev. And I too had that question and I spoke with you earlier as well. But when you say if it's not covered under our bylaw, you don't respond. Do you acknowledge the email or the phone call to the individual to at least say that this doesn't fall within our bylaws? Because when you say you don't respond, it kind of implies that you just don't get back to them. But I don't think that's the case. I think you acknowledge it and inform them of what you can and cannot do.
Yep.
Okay. Through the mayor. Yes, I'm sorry, my terminology. Respond to me means going out and doing a investigation. I have yet to have a voicemail left to me. I'm usually, in my case, I pick up the phone as soon as it rings and I talk to the complainant and explain to them that we don't have a bylaw. There's really nothing I can charge somebody with. We're not the type of community that's going to go out and knock on somebody's door and say, hey, you can't be doing this, when we're really don't have a leg to be there. We have to make sure we enforce the bylaws that are on our books and gain some respect of the community.
Yep, go ahead.
And could you, I know that you're going to be looking at the bylaw and working through process. What is a normal expectation if someone does have a stray dog in their possession and they call the canine control? What could they expect to experience in general if everything was in a perfect world?
So as you say, in general, in perfect world, and my mind starts racing, okay, what are the different complaints we get? We get a complaint about a stray dog.
It mentions stray dog.
And that would be reasonable, I would think, within that afternoon or within a certain 4-hour window or so, reasonable to come to a stray dog. A dog that has been captured and held in an area, again, I would say 4 hours is more than reasonable to come out and respond to that dog.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Any other questions? Jason, go ahead.
Pertaining to that, the canine bylaw, Bev, I'm just wondering why would go ahead and approve this before we change the bylaw? Will that change their services? And
I believe through the mayor that no, it will not change the services. It's just going to change how the services are, or how the fines and language within the bylaw is what we're looking for, to clean it up and make it a little bit easier to understand by both the bylaw officer and the public.
Go ahead, Jason.
I guess I had two more if I can. Who is this company? It's pretty vague. Do we know much about them, or just kind of be nice to know a bit more about them? Then I guess my other one's more of a comment. I don't know. We have a full-time bylaw officer, and talks with you before. I'm not sure. I don't know. I better word this right. But anyway, we have a full-time bylaw officer. And now we're going to charge more for this. It don't sit right with me. But I guess I had the biggest one is, who is this company? Does anybody know anything about it? It's pretty vague on there.
Yep.
Through the mayor, the company is a company, it's based out of Springmount in the Owen Sound area. They currently serve, I'm just thinking, they do Wellington, they do Chatsworth, they do Grey Highlands. They're a subsidiary of another company, James Special Services, which I have dealt with in the past in a few cases. We have received rave reviews from other municipalities that they are doing a good job for those. And they're very happy with them. And I will, to your comment, I will mention that we do have a full-time bylaw officer, and currently that bylaw officer works from 8:30 to 4 o'clock, Monday to Friday. This service is after hours to alleviate the building department and the bylaw officer working over the weekend and spending their time doing the service.
Thanks, Bev. Any other, Jason? So you,
Well, how many calls per month or per week would bylaw get? Roughly. Yeah, you don't have to be exact.
After hours bylaw?
Yeah, after hours. Sorry.
Last year, it was less than 10 for the whole system. Okay. I'm not saying that won't go up or down, but last year it was less than 10.
Jason?
Yeah.
Yep. Martin?
Bev, the canine control and the after hours schedule A and B, you mentioned that you like the option 2, which is the cheaper from that company. With the difference between 9,000 to 1,000 or 9,000 to, the differences, will all those provisions still be, what's the word I'm looking for? Will all those be looked after, all the provisions in, even though it's cheaper? Like, you see what I'm getting at?
Through the mayor, I believe I understand what you're
Yeah.
getting at. I want to make it clear that option one, the 9,000, was a full-time bylaw officer in the township.
Yeah.
In other words, putting an officer here to patrol the streets, issue parking tickets, fill our whole bylaws.
Yeah, but with number one or number
That would be
two,
number one. Number
yeah,
two
number
is,
two,
is,
it will
is on
provide,
call after hours. And it would provide more of the noise and the fireworks. Currently, we do not go after parking on weekends.
so everything's covered by that, basically. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Any other questions? Monica? Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Just through you, Chair, to Bev, when we take a look at service quality with this new contract, I just wanted to confirm how will the service quality be monitored, and especially when it comes to response times and professionalism, how will that be evaluated?
Through the mayor, in their contract, they are to respond or to supply monthly reports to us. And that would give me a good basis to decide whether they are following through with things. And of course, the public will most likely let us know if they're not happy.
Go ahead, Monica.
Thank you. Just again through you, Chair. Thank you, Bev, for that. So would there be any penalties for underperformance or incentives for exceeding expectations? So either way, is that something that will be coming from us or from them? How exactly would it work with this contract?
Through the mayor, this contract does not carry penalties or bonuses. I believe the answer to that we would end up canceling the contract or the service if we weren't completely happy and could not adjust it or make things happen and work.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep. Thank you.
very good. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. Oh, Jason, you have a question? Sure you can, absolutely. But just let me ask one more time. Any further questions before we call the vote? Not seeing any? Okay, Madam Clerk, a recorded vote has been requested.
A recorded vote has been requested on item 8.1.1 CBO 2024-003 after hours bylaw and canine control tender award recommendations. Counselor Shipston,
Yes,
Counselor Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Milne,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Delbreen,
Yes.
Counselor Rice,
No.
Counselor John,
Yes.
Counselor Singh Stores.
No.
By a vote of 5 to 2, that's carried.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, moving on, we have Recreation Manager Kevin Green here this morning while he's online. And he's going to talk about the lawn maintenance contract approval. Someone care to move that, please? Barb and Jim. Afternoon, Kevin. Floor is yours, sir.
Good day. This is just the biannual contract. It's done every 2 years. The tender went out and closed March 28th. We had 4 companies. The company that had the successful bid was the same gentleman that's done it for the last 2 years for us.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Any questions? Martin?
morning, Kevin. He's obviously done good work this year, but because of his distance from Wingham, that's like almost an hour. Were there any issues with his travel time or getting to the job? Because he is one of the cheaper tenders. I was just wondering about that, but.
No, what happens is once a person kind of takes our tender, the cemeteries in the area jump on the same person. So he actually has probably 8 to 10 more clients in the Holstein area now. So it works out that he just comes up and spends the 2 days in our area. So he's been quite reliable.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Barb.
Through you, good morning, afternoon, Kevin. The contractor, this entails the cemetery as well? In Dundalk?
No, not the Dundalk Cemetery.
Okay, thank you.
They're on different years of contracting out.
maybe Kevin, if you could just describe where the cemeteries in this contract are for everybody's benefit, please.
Just the three cemeteries are the one on Gray Road 109, just south of Holstein. It's an old cemetery. It's got 4 stones right on the side of the road. So it's not very big. Cemetery 41 is one concession east of Holstein. It's the same thing. It's just in the middle of a farmer's field. And the Innistogue Cemetery is another cemetery that's not used anymore, but it's on Highway 10 just north of Dundalk.
Very good. Thank you. Jason,
What do we still cut on our own, Kevin, that you guys do?
We do all the in-town Dundalk areas. Just we found that in the past that the contractor would come on his time. So a lot of times when they came, either the ball diamond was used or the playground was busy and they weren't able to cut a lot of the property that they were supposed to cut because of the timing. So we still do all the in-town stuff that we can cut at times when we can or available to cut.
okay. Any other questions? Monica, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Just through you, Chair, to you, Kevin. Just with regards to financials, when we take a look at previous contracts that are similar, do we, in terms of like the cost differences for value for money, are you able to speak to if they're pretty much the same, or are we getting more or less from this?
The tender price has come in pretty much the same as it has for 10 years. The new company come in from the one previous and he was maybe $100 more. And no, grass cutting just seems to be holding its own, even when the dollar value went up for the price of gas. And from the looks, the 2 other clients that did bid on it this year, they're pretty close to within reason. So yes, we're fortunate enough that we haven't had to take on a contract that's too expensive.
Thank you.
Okay. Jason, go ahead. Yep.
Since we're hiring, I forget the name of the manager that's going to be over recreation and everything. He's covering recreation too, or she politically.
That's correct.
Is that gonna mean less burden on Kevin where we could pass this down and keep this ourselves to save some money? Just a question. Or is it, are they
Who wants to take a run at
like,
that?
I'm
It could
manager. I don't know. I just wondered.
It could possibly help with the overall management. We're hoping that we get a better sense of the administration from that side. So there's going to be a lot of extra work that will happen with that person, but we're hoping that it might help alleviate Kevin with some of that stuff for sure.
Okay. Monica.
Yes, so just to that point, and with regards to contract outline, it may have already been there, so or I might have missed it, but is there renewal terms that we know of for this contract?
I believe the contract's for a 2-year period. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, we just go 2 years, just that way we're not, price of gas changes again or whatever. We're not holding somebody to a contract that they can't maintain. And it gives us a sense of stability over 2 years that for budgeting purposes.
Okay, just to follow up.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. So with regards to that, thank you, Kevin. Is there any recourse or exit clause if needed to protect the township interest? Should it be something that we need to do within before the 2-year period?
Yes, I have full control over whether we can terminate the contract if they're not doing the work within the contract itself. So yes, we do have an exit clause if we need it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Economic Development Officer Brenna Carroll, who is with us today. She's going to be talking about a CIP application regarding Canadian Fence and Hardware. Someone care to move that motion, please? Jim and Joan. Brenna, good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Yes, today I'll be presenting a CIP application for Canadian Fence and Hardware for the amount of $15,000. That amount will be broken down between about $2,500 for planning fees, $2,500 for building fees, and $10,000 for development charges. And again, these funds would be dispersed after the completion of the project. So I'm open to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenna. Are there any questions? Barb?
Just a quick question. It's great that the CIP is being recognized and by other businesses outside of the downtown. And it's great that we have employers in the Eco Park. Do we know how many employees that they have?
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies, Deputy Mayor. I don't recall. I have spoken to the business owner. I believe it's between 5 and 10, but I can't say for sure. And obviously with the increase of warehouse space, which would double, that would increase their staffing significantly as well.
Okay, any other questions? Joan, go ahead.
Through the chair. Sorry, Brenna, I know you told us this before, but just a refresher, where do we get all the CIP money from again? Where all this money comes from to do all this work? Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Counselor, for the question. This money is from reserves. The money for this project will come from reserves from Grey County for specifically community improvement projects. We also have some funds set aside through Southgate reserves specifically for community improvement projects as well. So it's from those amounts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenna. Any other questions? Monica, go ahead, and then Martin.
All right, thank you. Just through you, Chair, to the EDO. It's just a quick question. If the costs do go excessive above the amount that's being allotted, what would happen in that case?
Thank you. The costs, if they are above what's been allotted, we won't be able to give any more. We can only give up to these maximums. So the amount proposed is already the maximums for each of these categories. So if they do go above these costs, we will only be able to disperse what we've committed to. Thank you.
Martin?
Yeah, excuse me, more of a comment, really. When you see a 700,000 price tag and the grant's 15,000, this kind of stuff is done by province and feds all the time. So if we can show people out there we mean business with the Eco Park and help them out, and people are now using it because it's getting out in the open more, I think it's a good thing. And as you said, that was one of my questions, that Deputy Mayor, how many people do they hire? Well, if they have more space, they'll probably at least hire another couple, or maybe train them to do more forklift work. So there's always a benefit, something like this. So I think it's a good thing.
Thank you, Martin. Any other? Oh, Jason, go ahead.
So this CIP, Brianna, it's different than the one the couple businesses have got downtown. Okay, or it's the same.
Yes, it's all under the community improvement plan.
Right.
There's just different streams of the plan because obviously this specific business, because it's zoned industrial, it wouldn't be able to qualify, for example, for the building and lands improvement grants, because that's just for commercial and mixed use properties. So I think the purpose when the CIP was written was to be able to accommodate a large number of businesses so that it wouldn't just be segregated to be used in the downtown. So yes, this is just another stream of the same overarching plan. Thank you.
follow, how many streams is there under that? I wasn't, I knew there was, so I wasn't sure. It don't.
If I'm just looking at the application, there's about 10 streams or so. So, and there's a possibility if council decides that they can just leave some streams open depending on what they're looking to fund at that time. So that would be another discussion. But yes, there's several different types of streams just to encourage development from a large amount of industries and businesses.
More than one, less than 50. Martin.
Yeah, just so there's 10 streams. So council, you just said council can close one stream or two, depending on obviously how much money's in the account for a certain year. We have that. Sorry, there's not enough that's going here. Can we do that? Is that what you meant?
Yes. So if council decides they would like to just focus on, for example, facade improvements, it's possible to just stop accepting applications for other streams like the environmental study grant or something like that, to just focus on those other grants, as they are a smaller amount. Those ones are about 2,500 or 3,500. So it's possible to do that. But at the moment, it helps to have a broad range because we're getting different businesses applying, not one type of business.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Thank you, Brenna. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Brenna. Public Works Manager Jim Ellis is here. He's going to speak to us on a TAPS tender award regarding roads and equipment. Barb will move that. Seconded by Martin. Thank you. Good afternoon, Jim. Welcome.
Good afternoon, good people. This is a release of some other capital projects that we had on for the 2024 budget. As you can see, some are a little bit over their budget line, and the one bigger one is under. So I believe everything will balance out with the double surface treatment as well. There will be some other added costs yet to that project that is not seen in this, with our prepping of potholes prior to the double surface treatment. So again, pretty tough these days to keep potholes filled. The rain as it is just pounds them right out, and there's not even any remnants of anything ever being there. It's just disappears. So it's very disheartening at times, but anyhow, that's about potholes. This is about double surface treatment. Prior to that application, all the holes have to be ready for the application. That's all I'm trying to get at. So
Thank you, Jim. Any questions regarding that report? Martin.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I like what you said. Everything kind of balances out because I'm not very good at math, but I did kind of go through that, and there were checks and balances. But the one thing that is, they're always excluding HST. When you add all the HST up, that really just puts everything over budget. So maybe this is something Dina could answer is, do we get GST rebates to soften that blow to make it not go over? Is that the right word? To make it not go over budget as much?
Dina?
We certainly do. The township pays just over 1%. I know our treasurer is here and probably can give you a more accurate number, but I think it's like 1.07%, and gets a rebate for the rest of the HST.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I just had one question. Jim, do you have any sort of sense of the timeline for these projects to go ahead?
The one submission for the double surface treatment, I believe, was for August scheduling. As far as the others, there was no schedule pertaining to them that was submitted anyways, but the awarded one did have a schedule for August for that application for the surface treatment.
Very good. Thank you. Martin.
On that, Jim, the biggest job, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get done from start to end?
Jim?
The double surface treatment, there's a few different road segments. One is longer than the other, but in reality, probably to complete them, depending on weather as well, but probably a week, maybe 2 weeks at the most, but they may be delayed if weather doesn't cooperate. And if I just might ask, our new 2022 plow truck just arrived today. It was parked out back. I asked the guys to park it out front here so you can have a look when you leave. So
Very good. Thank you, Jim. It might take a day or two longer to do any of those projects, accounting for the parade of the neighbors rejoicing over the new road. Monica or Taylor, you got a question or a point? Go ahead.
I just heard Dina about the HST. It's 1.76%.
So that means we pay or we don't pay 11.3%,
Right.
just for rough figuring.
I like
No
to
boy,
be
Matt.
on that.
Thank you, Taylor.
You're welcome.
Barb.
Thank you. Through you to Jim. Is that the same plow truck that would, if that arrived today, what was the, oh, that was the waste truck was at Maple Fest.
Yeah.
It looks really nice. And the kids had a great time climbing in and out of it.
Jim.
yeah, that came along about 2 weeks ago, and we couldn't get it stickered, and we didn't want it on the road till we had at least the big stickers on it, as well as a few other things. The radio and GPS had to be installed, but we delayed its timing going out because we thought it was so fresh, and Maple Fest being there was a good opportunity. So I'm glad it was a success.
Yeah, it was so, and thank you to your staff and to Brenna and I don't know who else was there. Oh, Lisa was there. Well, that's your staff. So thank you for all of them taking the time to show it off. Monica, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Just through you, Chair, to the Public Works Manager, just given the slight overage for the plow truck purchase, just wondering, there might not be a big effect, but will this affect our future budget allocations or savings from other areas?
Well, within these 3 items here and the budgets we have, we are in line to be still under budget. But for future, yes, we will increase that plow truck. Again, we get some pre-budget numbers, and here's where we plug them in, and then 6 months or 4 months later, at time of budget time, obviously the submissions change. So.
Thank you, Jim. Jim.
Just a question. The double surface treatment, is that tar and chip you're talking about, or?
Jim?
Yeah. And a couple years ago, we did just a single surface treatment on 24 from Greater Road 14 to 57. And we also did 71 from the town line right to Road 26. 24 is held up pretty good for the single application. 71 right now is getting beat out again. But the double surface treatment definitely adds another 4 or 5 years to longevity. So.
And just follow.
Yep. Sure.
Just with that, are you, with the potholes there, are we going to be doing like a hot patch before, or just hopefully the tar and chip will patch the potholes and that?
No, we have to prep all the holes prior. The bigger holes and some of those areas will probably put a strip in of hot mix. You've seen that application on some of our road areas before. The smaller holes just prior to happening will probably have more likely cold mix, just because it's a little quicker. We don't have to run back and forth to the hot mix asphalt plant for the materials. So there'll be a combination, but we do have a tough stretch up by 71 at 26 there, the corner bend. We will be when we're in there doing cold in place, doing a patch in that corner. And we're even in discussions right now with operations about returning the curve back to gravel, just because it's so hard right now to keep any material in it. So again, a lot of truck traffic taking 71. So that's taking its toll as well.
Go ahead.
Just, what would the price difference be for doing the cold in place recycling over? It'd be a bit more because you'd have to put a top layer on afterwards, but do you have a rough idea what the price range would be on that?
I did have that, I think, a council meeting or two ago for budget, but I would have to pull them in, but I can get them for you. Yeah, I just, not off the top of my head, but I did have that prepped a few meetings ago for you guys.
Okay. Jason,
Just wondering on delivery on the truck, how far out's that, Jim?
That's a good question. No, we only had the one bid submission, so that's, I don't think there was a scheduled date for delivery, but excuse me, as you can see, this one that just arrived is 2 years. So I think things are moving a lot quicker right now. So let's hope a year, let's say, probably.
okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Chief Administrative Officer Dina Lundy is here to speak to two reports. The first is the CAO Annual Performance Review Policy. And I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Jim and Jason. Thank you. Welcome, Dina.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is a little overdue, and I apologize for that. It really is solidifying a formal process that the township hasn't had before for the review of the CAO, which is really important. The CAO is, as you know, is council's one direct employee and is responsible for the administration of the operations of the entire municipality. So it's important that we're aligned in our goals, and I think that it's a good policy. Just so council's aware, the bones were taken really from the County of Grey's performance review policy, and we just modified it a wee bit to fit the township. And yeah, that's it.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions on that particular report? Martin.
Afternoon, Dina. In the Schedule 1, the CAO competencies, I can't even say it. It's item 2, it says, help elected officials and other community actors identify, work toward achieve goals. And then number 6 says democratic advocacy, citizen participation, commitment to principles, respecting elected officials, community interest groups, and decision-making. I like words. What's the difference between a community interest group and a community actor, if any? Yeah, it says, number 6, it says by respecting elected officials, community interest groups, and the decision-making process, IDs making sure goals are met. And then number 2, it says helps elected officials and other community actors to achieve common goals. I was just wondering what's the difference between a community group and a community actor, or are they both the same?
I think there's similarities between the two. Sorry.
There you go.
There's similarities between the two, but I think that a community actor can be just an individual that does a lot of community work and perhaps is just a different, just so we cover everybody. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Barb.
Thank you through you, Mayor Milne, to the CAO. Thank you, Dina. In reading it, I didn't feel that it was that much of a departure from what we had been doing, but that it formalized the process and it enhanced the process to make it more streamlined so that there's a guidance document as opposed to this is how we've always done it and just doing it. So thank you. It was good to read it and say, yeah, we've been doing that. Or, yeah, here's where we're going to be able to do it a little bit better. So thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. And the next report from the CAO is the Grand Gray Transit Route bus stop location change. So it is. Barb's gonna move that. Is there a seconder? Martin, thank you. Dina.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. This is just a information report, really. The changes already on the county's website, but I thought it important to bring it to council and just kind of inform the public of the changes that are coming. From Grey County, they made the change for a number of reasons. And one of them was for because of the feedback that they're getting from Dundalk. And putting the stop in a spot that is more walkable for the whole community. So I think it's a good change, but I just wanted to bring it forward so that the county can make this change coming May 1st.
Thank you, Dina. Questions? Martin? And then Joan.
The first one was a comment. When I read this, I said, wow, that's actually pretty neat planning, actually having it in the middle of town at the library. And there's a new restaurant coming in, another new coffee shop. So when they're there, they don't have to walk from the arena all the way to get their coffee, unless you wanted to take your life in your hands and cross the road to Timmy's. But that's another story. But I thought that was really great. And it makes sense. The only question maybe is the fact that the weekend services, so Brian or Barb, is that because there was no people using it, or during the week, was it more for people to get to work? Or putting you on the spot, getting to work, or using government services which aren't?
The short answer is budget.
Budget? Okay.
The county in their wisdom withdrew basically all of their contribution to this project. And so Stephanie Stewart, who is the person who looks after our transportation systems at the county, public transit, she was tasked with rejigging the entire system to work within the budget that remained. And so these changes reflect that. I think that would be the short answer. Barb?
And if I could just add on to your comment, because I mean, that was the long and the short of it. But I think also we had to return to what was funded. So we took a step back. We had been subsidizing, or county had been subsidizing part of the transit service. And it was in order to go through that budget cycle, we returned to what the funding grant was meant to be. And unfortunately, that cut some weekend service and other routes throughout the county.
Ironically, many years ago, some might remember Grey Coach, when they were still running, their stop was downtown. Just, I think the restaurant was the stop, if I'm not mistaken, at the time. Somewhere downtown, right close there anyway. So here we are. We're back. They're back. Any other questions? Monica? Oh, sorry. Joan was next. My apologies, Monica. Joan was next. My apologies, madam.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dina. Thanks for the report. I should say that I've taken this bus before, and it's a really good thing that it's moved to the library, especially if we're waiting and we're late in the elements, at least there's a seat there, or we can go inside of the library and wait. And there's a number of times that I've picked up people along the way rushing to get to the arena. So it's a great idea. And thank you for the report.
Thank you, Joe. Monica.
Thank you. Just through you, Mayor, I just wanted to confirm. So is this the one stop and then it continues? Or is there another stop out in Dundalk?
Through you, Your Worship, it is the only stop. It is moving from the arena to the library. And I don't think they would add another stop due to budget, but yeah, it is the only stop.
Just a follow-up.
Yep, go ahead.
So do we know how much it would cost to put at least one more stop going maybe eastbound, like on the side of like Tim Hortons side across from the arena? Or is there a possibility to see if there could be one more? Because that's a very good location, the library. And I completely understand it. but also across from the arena could also be beneficial. So do we know how much just one more on that spot could be?
I will go out on a limb and say that there's there's two chances, slim and none. But never say never. But that question would probably be better sent to Stephanie Stewart at the county, who looks after the system. And she knows to the nickel what this system is costing and where. She does a tremendous job for us there running that system. So I would direct you to her. And if it was up to Stephanie and she had the budget to do it, she would put 10 stops in Dundalk. But the reality is, with the budget she's got to work with, one is what is being presented. And as I say never for the future, but for now, I suspect this is it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So just to confirm, so yes, I heard of Stephanie for sure, and so I will reach out to her. I'm gonna try to go with the slim part and see if that does anything. But I think it may be beneficial just to have that extra one if it's possible. So thank you for that.
Fair enough. Thank you. Barb.
Through you, it's unfortunate that this funding is only available until 2025. Keeping our fingers crossed that something else helps us to continue the service, because the Dundalk to Orangeville route, or the Owen Sound to Orangeville route, and from Dundalk specifically, is the most traveled portion of that transit route. We still continue through discussions with GO and MTO at any opportunity that we can to bring a more permanent service. I would be concerned about if there was the possibility of a second stop. I would hazard a guess that trying to stop right at the Tim Hortons or in the south side of Main Street might be a little bit hazardous, given the comment by Councillor Shipston about taking your life into your hands of crossing that street, and the congestion that occurs at that intersection is tremendous. But good luck with seeking an extra stop.
Can I just follow up?
Yep, go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, so just to clarify, thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your insight on that. And definitely, that was just a suggestion like for that spot, but that's not it would obviously be a conversation because I'm not the expert in that area, but just suggesting a second stop near that area. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Gina. Planning Department. This is always a popular part of the meeting.
Hello.
There's Bill. I knew he was there somewhere. Bill, and the first report is regarding restarting a zoning amendment for a C3 zone. So
That's right.
I need a mover and a seconder. Jim and Joan, thank you very much. Welcome, Bill. The floor is yours. And welcome, I saw Victoria up there earlier, but anyway. Oh, there she is.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Milne. You have a request attached to my report to resurrect this zoning amendment that began 3 or 4 years ago. It simply added restaurants, taverns, and convenience store to the C3 zone. And we've tracked it back, and there's a set of meeting minutes from, I think, November of 2021 that show there was a public meeting held on it, and some, but it never came forward again for a final bylaw, as far as we can tell. And Mr. Lazante and others are interested in property development. I provided a map of where the C3 zone is. It's been amended to add various exceptions for different locations. So I've tried to point out where we could find the C3 zones. There's an official plan map in the report that shows where the arterial commercial designation is. And our official plan would allow for restaurants, taverns, convenience stores to typically be permitted in a C3 zone. I listed the C3 zone other uses. It includes whole range of automotive uses such as automotive repair, automotive service, automotive sales. There's certain minimum frontage and area requirements. Mr. Lazante actually some time ago did get an exception for his property. So his doesn't quite meet the 2,000 square meters, but he has an exception that recognizes, I think it's a 1,570 square meter lot area. So if council agrees to proceed with this rezoning that was initiated by the township 4 years ago, he would be allowed to put a restaurant in his property. That would be subject to all the remaining site and building regulations in the C3 zone and also the site plan control bylaw. So we would need to see exactly what he had in mind there and whether he was increasing the usability of the site depending on what he had in mind. There's three options that we've put forward in the report. The first one is to reissue a notice of public meeting and collect comments from agencies and the public. The second is to have us prepare a technical report and bring it back for a bylaw sometime in the next month or so. And Section 3417 of the Planning Act would apply to that, in that you would not be required to give any further notice. And finally, you could determine, of course, that you don't want to proceed further and require him to reapply for that. You have used option 2 to, I'll call it, resurrect the Fears Drive. I'm not sure if I'm saying that, Fears Drive, and the Golden Hagen rezonings. Both of those were used with 3417 applying to the notice provisions. I don't recall there being anyone opposed to this at the public meeting. I could stand to be corrected on that, but we certainly have no issue with either option, but perhaps option 2 is more certainly in Mr. Lazante's interests.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions? Martin?
Good afternoon, Bill. With that one amendment that was done 4 years ago, I'm thinking, you weren't here, but I'm thinking maybe that was the Highway 10 storage facility that didn't come to fruition. I think there was a public meeting about that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think if the C3 highway, if we allow that, I think it'd be a good thing. Maybe some developers would like to put in, like Mr. Lazante, different forms of commercial use that was going to be initiated by Flato with that little strip mall he wanted. But so I'm in favor of this. I think number 2, as far as direction, would be the appropriate one. So that's all I'm saying.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Any other questions? Barb, and then Joan. I'll definitely not forget you this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, back to 2021, my gosh, that seems so long ago. I at first thought that this meant that if we're changing the C3 zone, is that just Highway 10 commercial, or does that apply to any commercial 3 zone throughout Southgate? Because I read it as being, you could do a rezoning for one property, such as Councillor Shipston mentioned, that storage facility properly that doesn't seem to be a storage facility, but I'm not sure which property is the Lazante property, but you're proposing to rezone the entire Highway 10. I guess my question, I apologize for rambling, does this apply to all C3 zones, or are there any other commercial 3 zones in Southgate that would then have that permitted use attached?
Right. Through you, Mayor Milne, to the Deputy Mayor, thank you for the question. It's a very important question. And we tried to go through the zoning bylaw and pick out all the C3 zoned areas, because what I read is what was intended when this started was that restaurant, tavern, and convenience store would be added as a permitted use to the C3 zone. And if that's the intent, then all of the properties that have that C3 category would in fact have that as a permitted use. Mr. Lazante's property is on Highway 10, near or almost beside the LCBO. That's where he is, and he's on a lot that's smaller than 2,000 square meters. So he has an exception zoning for that. So technically, if council choose to put those 3 permitted uses in the general C3 zone, I believe he would be allowed that on that property, as would all of those ones we show in the map on Highway 10. And I think there was 1 or 2, one near the arena. I can't remember where they all were exactly, but yeah. So now again, this is all if you choose option 2, then we would bring back a technical report, and I would try to explain it maybe better than I have, more fully than in this one. And we would find all the C3 zones and make sure that this is how you want it to be. So you still have the opportunity to craft the bylaw the way you wish, but if going by what was given notice for back 4 years ago, it added those 3 uses to that C3 zone, and that would therefore be permitted in all those areas and subject to site plan control and complying with all the site and building regulations in that zone.
So I'll rephrase. Is C3 only Highway 10? Or could that be, are there any other C3 zones anywhere else outside of Dundalk?
Right. If maybe the best reference is the official plan map on page 2 of our report. And I have arrows going to arterial commercial designations. And so it picks up the Highway 10 area. And then there's one there, I think that's across from the arena. Yes, I can see it coming up on the screen there. So I don't think there are many. Most of them are on Highway 10, but I think there's at least one on Main Street.
Thank you. So you answer my question. C3 only exists in Dundalk. It's not throughout Southgate.
Right.
That,
No,
you know,
nowhere else. That's
okay.
correct. Not that I found.
Okay, and now I know the property that you're referring to, the Lazante property it would appear to be between the SO and the LCBO.
Right.
I think he'd be on the south side of the LCBO, would he
Yeah,
not?
on the other side, I think.
Where the automotive place is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And can you clarify also why, if they had a restaurant there before, they must have had an exception for that property? Did that lapse somehow?
I can't speak to that. If it was there before the zoning bylaw was passed and then it closed down subsequent to that, it could have been non-conforming, but I'm not entirely sure. But I could get some of that background for you in the technical report if you're interested in proceeding. I missed that there was a restaurant there. I know the area reasonably well with the LCBO and Tim Hortons, so. But
It refers to a former Burger Queen, which is a restaurant. And Councillor Rice just made a motion that there was another restaurant there at some point. But I think when this came before us, the zoning had lapsed because it had discontinued being a restaurant for a extended period of time. And so therefore they had to reapply. I'm in favor of, I believe it's option 2 as well, where we get a little bit more information and bring it back. I'm not sure if another public meeting is necessary, but I mean, we're having the conversation now. I'll leave it at that. Thank you. We'll see where it goes.
Thanks, Barb. Any other questions? Well, not yet. Joan?
You're not coming back. Thank you. Through the Bill, Barb asked most of my questions, so it's a good thing that Mr. Mayor forget about me, because I was just wondering too about instead of zoning one property for an exception, if it would allow, and also if you could give us an example of the usage of building, because the question is again, if they're all, anything that is C3 can just now be open as a restaurant, a tavern, or a convenience store. That's what you're saying?
Well, if I may, through the mayor to you, Councillor, it would be a permitted use in that zone. If someone like Mr. Lasante or someone else who has a property zoned C3 wanted to put a restaurant in, then they would come forward with a site plan showing the restaurant and the layout and the parking and all that. And if they're increasing the usability of that property, they would need a site plan approval. And that way we'd get into entrance controls and landscaping and traffic and MTO permits and all that stuff. So yes, it would be a permitted use, but they couldn't just put it in those buildings without change of use building permits, probably a site plan control, and they'd have to meet all the parking and setback regulations in that zone too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Martin.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, Bill, going back to what Deputy Mayor Barb DeBreen said about the C3 just being commercial highway. If you're going to do a technical report with option 2 and bring back a bylaw, could in that bylaw, you said you'd be looking at all C3, so there potentially could be C3 commercial properties on the west side of town as well, or like not in the whole township of Southgate, but somewhere else other than close to Highway 10?
Right. Through the mayor to the councillor, I wouldn't propose to add any more C3 zoned areas. I think the intent was just to add it to the ones that are already zoned C3. And I looked through the C3 at the bylaw to try and find those all. And I will look through again before if you choose option 2 and I prepare a technical report, I'll make sure we pick them all up and you know where they are. But there wouldn't be any new C3 zones added as a result of this amendment, unless council chose to do that. And if you were going to change a property from some other zone to C3, then I think you would need to do a public meeting for that. But if you're just adding it as a permitted use, which is what council started 4 years ago, then I think you don't have to have another public meeting, because no one really seemed to be concerned about that back then. But
okay, thank you,
I hope
Bill.
that answered the question.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Of option 2? Yes, sorry. Maybe Madam Clerk, could you read what the motion will actually say, just to reflect option 2?
Sure, through you, Mayor. I guess, I mean, technically, if we want to make an amendment to have it, it's a bit more than a friendly amendment, so everyone's clear. If someone wants to move an amendment that
Okay,
it's amended that council direct staff to prepare a technical report and bring back a bylaw for consideration, giving notice under section 3417 of council's intent to proceed.
okay. Would someone care to make that amendment? Martin and Barb, any discussion on the amendment? Call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? That is carried. Now we're back to the original motion as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can always rely on you to get me out of a quagmire of my own making. Thank you. Yes, Bill has another one here. Need to find it. There it is there. Site plan agreement with Lawrence Martin. So I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Jason and Jim. Thank you. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor Milne. This is probably a longer report than it had to be, because we're really just asking you to sign the site plan agreement with Mr. Martin. But as we got into this, there was a little more history on it than I was quite aware of. So I brought you back to when this use, I guess, was established in and around 2013. And the custom grain drying business was permitted at Highway 89 and the side road that I think it's 55. Back in 2020, there was another rezoning to allow the business to expand, and basically the entire zoned area is now permitted to have the grain storage business on it. We weren't able as a staff to find a site plan agreement for this property because agricultural uses are exempt from site plan control, and that's certainly encouraged by the Ministry of Agriculture. That may be why it was exempt, but this is really an agricultural related use, and therefore, and Mr. Martin has signed the site plan agreement. And I think it's important that he do that because, as I sort of hinted at, the zoning is pretty broadly written to allow him to expand within that zoned area. And when he was proposing a bigger expansion last summer, kind of before I hit the scene with Southgate, MTO was quite concerned about that and looking for improvements to the highway and so forth. So I think over the summer and into the fall, the proposal got changed to 3 storage bins, which is 3 bins on that property with all the activity that's going there really is probably going to have very little impact. The only issue that we saw with that is that the 1 bin, I guess it would be on the west side, encroaches into what would be your normal setback for a building from that street line. But since that whole zoned area allows the use, he doesn't technically have a setback to comply with, just the way the bylaw is written. So we've covered that under the site plan agreement. We don't want too many buildings, I don't think, getting up too close to that roadway for traffic movement, that kind of thing. We believe what he's proposed there is going to be just fine. We certainly support the expansion of the business. The site plan has been done very professionally and brought forward and circulated for all to review, and we're recommending that council consider a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign that site plan agreement, which I believe Mr. Martin has already signed as well. There is a little bit of work going on the existing gravel entrance to Side Road 55, just to make sure there's proper turning radiuses for fire department vehicles and so forth. But if there is a change that needs to be made there, it will be very minor.
Thank you, Bill. Barb.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, and thank you, Bill. Actually, your last comment strikes a thought in my mind, is the road improvements or sightline improvements or entranceways, that's all at the expense of the developer, the proponent?
Yes, they would be.
Jim.
This property would be MTO jurisdiction, so we wouldn't have no say on the intersection improvement.
But any improvements that were requested would be at the expense of the property owner.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
But we are not the jurisdiction
Right.
approving.
Yep. Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. That concludes the planning portion of the meeting. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bylaw.
Just the bylaw to go with that one. Item 8.6.3 first.
You sure?
Yeah.
Positive?
Am I? Maybe I'm wrong.
I see it. No, you are correct. You are correct. I'm just testing you. So don't go away, Bill. Oh, Bill's already gone away. All right. Victoria's still here. All right. Bylaw that goes with that site plan agreement. Who wants to move that? Jim does. And Barb. Thank you. Any discussion on the bylaw? All those in favor? That is carried. That was so quick, we might as well have said it was done. Bylaws and motions? I say that rather tentatively. Is anybody gonna? Okay, clerk's good. There's a bylaw there regarding an appointment to the Grey Bruce Joint Police Services Board, community member appointment, Carl Ellis. Barb will move that, seconded by Joan. Thank you. Is that your report?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Milne. Nothing to add here. This was a report at the last meeting, and we just wanted to wait until everything was in place before we brought back this appointment bylaw.
Yep. Well, I really hope council supports this because I saw Carl at Maple Fest and I congratulated him. Oh, wow. It's a done deal then. Any questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Any notice of motion? Nope. Consent items, regular business. There are a number of them there. Would anybody like any of the, well, there's two there, really. Any, one want any of those removed for anything? Martin?
The Public Works, 11.11, if we can have a chat about that. We don't have to pull it. I
Okay.
just like to
All
talk
right.
about it.
Good. So I need a mover to receive these consent items. Martin and Jason. All right, Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, to Jim, like we had a good chat on Friday about the solids, and you explained it to me in such great detail. I actually understood what I was thinking about when I asked you it. So would you like to share what you said to me about how the lagoon system works and how you're treating those solids? Because I think it's important for the community to know how things like that work.
Jim, please.
Yeah, so in this instance, at the effluent stage of the lagoon system, the solids aren't from the raw sewage coming in necessarily. The solids from the raw sewage coming in are basically more so contained to cell one. As they move through the cell system, some of those solids carry through broken down, but the solids we're dealing with mostly at the end of the systems is created by nutrients of growth, algae growth. So that is a byproduct from that happening. So just to bring you back up to speed here, we did get emergency discharge relief at late Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock Friday. We started discharging to the Foley. Subsequently, the unionized ammonia is the parameter that's out of compliance currently, but we've also moved into compliance very quickly after starting the discharge. We're just floating around. We're trending right now that everything is in compliance, but we're going to give another day or two of sampling before we possibly end the bypass situation and just return to normal operations. So we haven't breached any lagoons. We have been right at the thresholds with definitely the precipitation last weekend, but there hasn't been a breach of lagoons to date. And again, we're trending that we're in compliance. So we are monitoring flows on the Foley drain and sending extra samples and doing extra in-house samples as well to satisfy what's being impacted, but it's very negligible what's happening with the Foley drain as far as discharge.
Just floating around. I saw what you did there, Jim. That was good.
Mayor, we think alike, because I was thinking, talking about solids and, just floating around, it was too good a pun not to accept. Yeah, so I thought, I didn't want to put you on the spot there, Jim, but that explanation, I was there around what, 12, and then the permit came in the next. And so how long is that permit for? Is it just for that one discharge? That's the only question I had out of all this.
It's an open a little bit. We had requested initially for like a 14-day, but that would be being totally out of compliance. But as I say, we are trending and in compliance since nearly the get-go almost. So the solids were in compliance. It's the ionized ammonia that's just moving up and down. The cells were dosed Monday by Aqua boats were in, so that's lowered pH. We've seen that happening coming through the plant now as well. So.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Okay, I'll call the question to receive those ones. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Correspondence for information. There are 5 items there. Does anybody wish any of those removed? Barb?
I'd like to pull 11.2.3, please.
Okay. Any others? Okay. You want that pulled out,
Yes,
right?
please.
Okay, so the other four remaining, are all those in favor of receiving those? Sorry? Mover and seconder. Who would like to do that? Barb and Joan. Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. 11.2.3, Barb.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, and through you, I would like to just move a resolution to support the correspondence from the Drinking Water Source Protection in regard to the Auditor General's report of public health recommendation to gradually eliminate the free private water system testing fee or impose a fee on private well testing. The resolution is there before you on the screen. It is just in the format of what we are accustomed to seeing for circulating to other municipalities, but each clause is a direct extract from the letter provided by the Drinking Water Source Protection for the Grace Sabo, Saugeen, and Northern Bruce Peninsula. It is our watershed, and I would hope, I daresn't read the entire thing, Mr. Mayor, unless you.
No.
It is, I will get to the crux of it. I'm hopeful that that Council of the Township of Southgate receive the Drinking Water Source Protection Auditor General's Public Health Ontario recommendation on private drinking well testing correspondence for information, and that the council on the call on the province to not phase out free well water testing as part of the proposed streamlining efforts of public health laboratory operations in the province. And there's a series of people that we would like to circulate that to. I would so move that, and then
Okay.
I have a comment.
Is there a seconder? Martin? Barb?
Thank you. My comment is that 2025 is the 25th anniversary of the Walkerton tragedy. And if we've learned nothing, it's that we should not forget history. Imposing a fee for private well testing could have an adverse effect in that people just won't get their wells tested. It is imperative that we all have barrier-free testing for our water systems, whether that is for our own personal use or guests that come upon our property. I did have the opportunity to present this at the Conservation Ontario Annual General Meeting on Monday, and I have since received several requests for my motion so that they can bring it forward to their own conservation authorities as well as their councils. So it was well received and of great concern. Thank you.
Questions? If there are any. Martin?
I just have a comment. I'm so glad the deputy mayor brought this forward because I talked to Lindsay about it, and the discussion with her was basically because it was the water protection, we were part of 5 or 4 regions anyway, like 4 different participants.
Yep.
So I said, no, I won't bother then. And here it is now. And I wanted to talk to Lindsay about it because quite frankly, when I saw that letter, I was kind of peeved. And I don't mind saying it. Here you have a premier giving us Ontarios a break by demanding the LCBO bring in paper bags instead of making us have to buy recyclable ones for $1. And then he turns around and does this. It just got my goat. And I'm glad that we should fully support this, along with another resolution that I might bring up from another municipality. But that just 60,000 residents. And the law of averages will dictate those 60,000 wells are not all drilled. There are going to be some dug that have more, what's the word? Jim, help me out here. Groundwater, how it infiltrates.
More potential infiltration.
Very good. Very good. So I fully support this.
All right. Barb? Yep.
Thank you. And that's just 60,000 residents or 35% of our population in that watershed. There are other watersheds, 36 conservation authorities in Ontario. So, and many of them have rural rural residents. So we'll go for that. And I did note that in the correspondence, there is the town of Goderich is also providing a resolution for Maitland Valley. And this is going to be, there's going to be numerous resolutions, which is great. I wanted to focus on our own watershed.
Very good. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to resolutions of other municipalities. Somebody wish any of those to be removed for further discussion? Joan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to pull item number 11.3.3, City of St. Catharines endorsement notification, urgent need for increased funding for libraries and museums.
Very good. Just hold on for a second. All right. Any others wish to be removed? Okay, I'll need a mover and seconder to receive the ones save and accept for 11.3.3. Jim and Barb, thank you. All those in favor of receiving those ones? That is carried. Joan?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the Council of Township of Southgate received the correspondent and resolution from the City of St. Catharines, and that Council hereby support the resolution regarding an urgent need for increased funding to libraries and museums in Ontario, Township of Lincoln, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Premier Doug Ford, the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sport, Neil Lumsden, MPP Rick Bryce, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and all municipalities in Ontario. I believe that library level the playing field. Today, libraries are more than just books. It goes from teaching critical literacy skill to promoting entrepreneurship and small business development to preserving and facilitating our community stories. As the chair of the library board, I know firsthand that libraries serve people of every age, income level, location, ethnicity, physical ability, and also provide a full range of information resources needed to live, learn, govern, and work. I'm also positive that our friends of the library who are here, who work to promote the library in the use of the community, raise funds for library programs and services, and promote the use of the library and its many facilities will agree with me on this very important issue. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Joan. There's a seconder for that motion. Martin, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Martin?
Just a comment. I think the library grant that the library gets every year from the government hasn't changed in 20 years. And the roles and the duties of everybody down from the librarian to the volunteer help and volunteer groups has changed in those 10 years. So it should be looked at.
Thank you. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Joan. Okay, breezing right along. County report. I don't have anything startling to report other than it's riveting watching. If anybody doesn't have anything to do on an afternoon, watch the county YouTube channel. I'm just filler.
Because you can.
Does anybody have any questions regarding any county issues? Oh, I guess we already talked about the transit a little bit. All right, moving on, members' privilege, good news and celebrations. I'll kick it off by saying I want to congratulate Bella Cetera, Singsoras. She has been appointed as a legislative page in the Ontario Legislature. It's quite an honor, quite an achievement for her. My brother did it, I think it was in 1980, so that's not that long ago. And he found it an exciting opportunity, and I'm sure Bella will do a tremendous job down there. Of course, she's the daughter of our own Councillor Singsoras. So again, I want to congratulate Bella and indeed all of her family. So anyone else? Martin?
Just that it's National Volunteer Week and nice sequel for the Maple Fest and everything else that's going to come up. There's so many volunteers that put their time, and if the government had to pay them, there'd be another budget line that would be over budget every day. and they're well treated. So as they say in England, I tip my cap off to you because they're well deserving of everything they get. So.
Indeed. Anyone else? Okay. Barb?
To that, being volunteer week, I would have to agree with Councillor Shipston. Volunteers are our lifeblood of our community. And if we didn't have all of the volunteer organizations that we do, we wouldn't have events like Maple Fest and the Fall Fair and Downtown Trick or Treat and the Kite Festival. It's remarkable just how much our community, our Southgate community, puts on year after year with thousands of people coming through the doors. We learned last night at the Chamber of Commerce annual general meeting, we got a synopsis of everything that went through. 2,000 people through the Kite Festival, through the gate. And that was the first year. And Maple Fest, I would hazard on a good weekend is well in excess of that as well. So kudos to our volunteers, kudos to Maple Fest this past weekend. And I'd also mention that Junction Community Initiatives is holding their second annual International Women's Day Awards Gala this Saturday. So we're looking forward to celebrating the women in our community that bring so much more community service, business, and leadership to those around them. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else?
Excuse me,
Monica.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just with regards to Maple Fest, it was phenomenal. Just want to echo that comment to everybody. I want to thank the mayor for mentioning my daughter youth leadership opportunity as a legislative page. She's very excited and proud to represent Bruce Grey Owen Sound, and want to give a special thank you to her school, High Point Community School. They've been extremely supportive along with the principal and the teachers and her peers who are watching along with her. And in addition to that, MPP Rick Byers has been phenomenal and helping to support while Bella's been there in the sense of encouragement and all of that. And this was really something that Bella had to prepare for in the sense of the orientation and what's needed. So I'm very proud of her in that regard, and I hope that all are seeing her as a representative of our local area. Even though she's my daughter, she's her own person in her own right, and we do hope that that will inspire all other young leaders that are emerging in our community to continue to pursue their dreams and to go forward in believing in themselves and in one another. And then that it will not just be lip service when it comes to leadership, but that we actually live the character and values that we speak about on a regular basis. So thank you so much, Mayor, for mentioning that. I thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We do have a in-camera session. It's quite a lengthy motion, but basically, if council is agreeable, there are 3 items related to litigation, and there is 1 item related to development negotiations and 1 item related to sale of property update. So if someone would move to go in camera to deal with those 5 items. Jason and Jim. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. So we will now go into closed session to deal with those items. Okay, I'll bring the meeting back to order and I can confirm that we only discussed those items in closed session that are listed on the closed session agenda. Confirming bylaw. Someone care to move that, please? Jim and Joan, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. One more motion. Monica, adjourn, second. Jason, all those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of the day. Set